sexy about it. Nothing with sexy scandals and stuff to titillate you. This is the dry facts of life. And most folk have been trained, and I mean trained from birth, not to look at hard, dry, unpleasant facts. Always seek the happy side of things. Turn your back on the oncoming train. Right? One of the big players, remember, wrote all about it, what they wanted to do, and they'd done it all. A world ruled by experts who will speak with authority, and you're trained to obey authority, you see. And also, they would train the public to be egocentric. They would always seek pleasure and shy away from anything that was painful, including all mental pain, like, oh, that's bad news, I don't want to hear that, don't tell me that's bad, bad, bad. How many times have you heard that? See, it's been awfully successful. So the Leveson Inquiry, Leveson, he was the top judge, I suppose, that was given the so-called inquiry to bring in the end of free speech, except the authorized ones that were radical, that they wanted to push. And it's mainly, again, too, for those few journalists left who could put a comment out here and there that might give you a clue of what's really happening. That's all ended, just as legal that, you see. Same in Australia, at the same time. One of his pals in Australia did the same thing. But it says, but the Daily Mail dossier raises disturbing questions about the influence of people who know best, you see. And this goes back to 2012. This ties in what I'm talking about. It's been an extraordinary week for the BBC as it tears itself apart over one of the most catastrophic journalistic errors of modern times. False allegations of paedophilia against an elderly Tory party grandee have led to the resignation of the Director General. The possible demise of the flagship Newsnight programme, that's the one that's all pro-staying in Europe, the paying out of substantial libel damages, and, worst of all, perhaps a shattering blow to BBC's news reputation for integrity. I don't know what kind of integrity they're talking about. See, this was meant to happen. It was a setup to do this, to again, stop folk who were doing their own checking of facts and what's really happening from talking about it or writing about it. It's far better than if they say you can't discuss anything that's banned. You see? Because that would get everybody ticked off. So you've got to give them what appears to be a reason for the history books. You see? And so I won't go through it all. I'll put all these articles up tonight, remember, as I always do, for you to look up yourself. And you can definitely come to your own conclusion on it all. I'll also put up the history of the European Union. It's awfully important. Because especially when you've listened to my talks over years, and you'll see all the stuff that they've left out, especially for those behind it. And it says the European Union is a geopolitical entity, covering a large portion of the EU, or the European continent, founded upon numerous treaties, international treaties again. As they're undergone expansions, have taken it from 6 member states to 28, a majority of the states in Europe, which is always its intention, remember. Distinct from the ideas of federation, confederation, or customs union, the main development of the European Union has depended on a supranational foundation to make war unthinkable and materially impossible. And they're all members of NATO. And reinforce democracy, as enunciated by Robert Schuman under the leaders in the European Declaration of 1951. And the Schuman Declaration of 1950. This principle was at the heart of the European coal and steel community, which is called the ECSC in 1951. That's how they brought, that was a technique. And it wasn't really the technique, this was what they used to bring it all in, to unite the whole of Europe and then give a super parliament. The principle was at the heart of the European coal and steel community. The Treaty of Paris, 1951, and then later treaties of Rome. All these treaties. which established the European Economic Community. It's just about trading, that's all it's about. That was a big lie, you see. But they don't mention here, after World War II, even during World War II, then afterwards, part of the deal of giving Britain and other countries big, massive loans to reconstruct, which all had to pay back, of course, through the IMF. That's part of the reason they set all that up and all the rest of it, was that Britain would deindustrialize and that they would secretly put up institutions necessary to integrate all the countries of Europe under one government, basically. Anyway, it says here, Eisenhower wrote about it. And the European Atomic Energy Community, both the ECSC, all the coal and steel industry, and the Atomic Energy Committee, right, were later incorporated into the European Union, while the EAEC maintains a distinct legal identity despite sharing members and institutions. Then had the Maastricht Treaty, 1992, created by the European Union with its pillar system, including foreign and home affairs alongside the European community. This in turn led to the creation of the single European currency. The euro was launched in 1999, and the Maastricht Treaty has been amended by the Treaties of Amsterdam 1997 and Nice 2001, Lisbon 2007. Then they go into some of the pre-1945 idea of a united Europe, right? And I've given talks again about that. Winston Churchill actually said in a book written by his personal secretary during World War II, that Churchill said this war was great and that it would help realize their common dream of united Europe. And I've read parts of that book out over the year many years ago. Anyway, it goes through this stuff and how they did it all through these free trades, but there's a lot of lies in here too. A lot of things. Remember, most lies are given by omission of the organizations behind it. The real organizations behind it. All right? So you can read it for yourself if you're really keen. If not, go back to emotive things that get your emotions all in turmoil and you get angry and you get shows, circuses. It's up to you. That is your choice. And also put up to the European Coal and Steel Community link, which will give you some, again, more background about that and how they did it all. Because the top guys and the big unions were all Royal Institute of International Affairs, CFR members. And then you go into the Treaties of the European Union as well. I'll put that one up as well to show you how it was done. The reason I'm telling you all this is because the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which has been done basically, also incorporated other treaties that US, Canada, Mexico, and other countries signed years ago, NAFTA and all the rest of it, free trade agreements. So those ones are now updated into Trans-Pacific Partnership with, again, you funding it all again to all the taxpayers of these countries. Funding it all for the third world countries, supposed third world countries, so the big corporations can set up over there too and get cheap labor, but also to bring you under common laws and rules, which changes your domestic common laws and rules. You see? That's what happened to Europe. And that's what's going to happen. It's already happening to all the rest of us too. Anyway, the next link. The Economic Union told ExxonMobil that the Trans-Pacific Partnership, TTIP, would aid global expansion, documents reveal. And the trade chief told all giant and secret talks a free trade deal could address its concerns over regulations restricting activities in developing countries. And all these top members and CEOs are part of the big club that also belong to the Trilaterals and CFR, Royal Institute for International Affairs. And that's why they're all on board with this global agenda. And I'll put this up tonight too for those who want to see it. But anyways, the European Union's Trade Commissioner told the multinational oil company ExxonMobil a major free trade deal being negotiated by the US would help remove obstacles to fossil fuel developments in Africa and South America. So they're going to lose nothing as they tax you into the ground in the US, Canada, Britain and elsewhere for even heating your home. And everything's to skyrocket. It already is skyrocketing in price, as you all know, all energy. That goes back to the 1930s when they came up with the whole idea of taxing you for the energy you use, because everything is energy. Your money represents the energy that you put out under labor to earn it. And you can think all these things. So in a meeting in Brussels, October 2013, Karel de Gucht told the firm that the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership could address its concerns about regulations in developing countries that restrict the company's activities, etc., etc. And you can read it for yourself again. And then you have from Reuters, the EU trade chief says the US campaign rhetoric won't stop the TTIP trade talks. So the Commissioner, Cecilia Malmström, addresses a news conference in the publication of the EU proposal on sustainable development and negotiations for a TTIP in Brussels, Belgium, November 6, 2015. And it says, so Washington's Europe's top trade official plans an ambitious push to seal a sweeping US-European free trade deal this year, even as bitter US presidential primary races sour voter sentiment towards the trade. So, in other words, these must-be's will go on regardless. And I mean must-be's. It's interesting going way back into religion, into Kabbalah and Judaism or Talmudism. Make it so. And Salah, of course, these terms, at the end of their prayers and supplications or even demands from the deity. And into Freemasonry, of course, that also has the Grand Master on certain orders he's given to the followers, make it so. And you go into the CFR, Royal Institute of International Affairs, with their inner party at the very top, very secretive, and their outer party, that's all guys from the media and all the rest of it that do their bidding, you see, and their round table societies and so on, all belongs to them. But the inner party is make it so again. Here's the orders, make it so, make it happen. You see, it's quite amazing. You don't get just coincidences over and over again about important things. So these TTIP trade talks won't matter, regardless of who gets in. It doesn't matter in the US, with many candidates, including Republican frontrunner Donald Trump and Democrat Bernie Sanders, voicing strong opposition to the Trans-Pacific Partnership in its trade pact. Its European counterpart, still under negotiation, has largely flown under the radar. European Union Trade Commissioner Cecilia Malmström told reporters on a visit to Washington Wednesday that the major negotiating rounds for the Trans-Atlantic Trade and Investment Partnership were scheduled for April and July, with more informal meetings in March, June and May, etc., etc. So it goes on regardless of the circuses they give you, you see. And then France, this is other article, sees the EU-Canada agreement as a template for TTIP. Everything's very funny to me, actually, because it's all predictable. And press would like it to copy-paste key passages from the EU-Canada Free Trade Agreement, concluded last week, particularly those relating to the arbitration court that is such a controversial issue in Europe. And it says Euractiv France reports. That's a link you can check out for yourself. Minister of State for Foreign Trade Matthias Fickel welcomed the fact the French proposal for an international investment court was largely included in the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, that's CETA, concluded Monday 29th April between the European Union and Canada. And then it's got EU-Canada change the ISD's clause and get closer to gold-plated trade deal. That means it's written in stone, not just the gold, you see. Gold for the ones who plan it all and run it all. And you can see in this article and other articles too that it's all meant to bring in the supranational institutions which eventually amalgamate, and actually they're already part of it, of a super government system which will ride over all national governments. You see? Remember the goal of the Royal Institute for International Affairs, and before that the groups that call themselves different names, was always world government, where their big boys at the top own the money system in the world, they own the trade of the world, they own all the rights to all necessary ores, etc., for mining, yada, 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 foodstuffs or through their agri-food businesses. Everything you need to survive on, they will own. Because there'll be beneficent dictators, you see, like Solomon, all that nonsense. Beneficent, you see. And it won't be nasty for you. No. Well, look at communism. That's what they thought they'd get in communism, too, in Soviet Union. But anyway, through all their different trade agreements and so on, all their big boys end up, and they're front men too, even they're big boys, because they're all part of this one association which they cannot cross. Psychopaths cannot cross it. They can work together, all right. They can certainly work together, whereas in their own personal interest, each individually. It's worked awfully well up until now too. So anyway, read these articles because it's really an insight into all the things they did in Europe to get the European Union going under a super parliament based in Brussels with all the other governments and their little satrapies underneath them now, like little satrapies of the old British Empire. It's the same deal now. Britain itself is part of the satrapy. Read it yourself, and next week, hopefully, if I've got time, I'll go through a lot of other stuff to do with this as well. I know it's boring. It's not exciting. If you want that, go and do something that gets you all angry or happy or fascinated, especially fascination. You know, you wouldn't believe how many folk are deserting reason and going off on the most amazing topics. It's all been planned for them to escape into, because they can't handle truth and the scary things that are happening in the world. Remember, too, you can buy the books and discs from cuttingthroughthematrix.com. And you can hopefully donate something to keep me just ticking along here. I'm not selling you nothing else. And I'm trying to give you truth as well. At least what's put out there under investigation as well, scrutinized to find out the facts. Because believe you me, it's the hardest thing to do, is to find facts and truth in this matrix. From Hamish myself from Ontario, Canada, it's good night to me, or God or your gods go with you.